Hey everybody, this is Talkative Carl back again for another comic book review. Last week I did a review for the Black Label book Harleen, which you can find on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/talkativecarl. Links are in the description. And especially that was the week that uh, the Harley, at least no, it's not when the third season of Harley Quinn came out, but you know, uh, no, yeah, I think so. Anyway, it was just by happenstance, and I figured like, okay, I have to do like a poison ivy thing, and it's one of those moments where it's like, I'm glad things like this exist. There's other, at least a handful of other poison ivy stuff, but nothing of any notoriety. I think this is probably like the biggest poison ivy book, out there. But currently, right now, there is like a poison ivy story going on after the events of Fear State, I think. Uh, it seems like right now it looks pretty good. Once it's all complete, I will eventually do a review for that. But you know, uh, people in DC, I mean, the streaming and movies and TV show aside, with that whole debacle, when the comic front, uh, I understand like everybody wants to do a Batman thing, because that's how you get your name out there. Because Batman brings in the big bucks, and it's like first and foremost, in my opinion, this is not the Batman universe. This is the DC universe. There's other characters. Uh, I've said this many times. There's other characters out there you can uh, do incredible stories on. You just got to put in like the effort and give a shit. Because I imagine there's like a long ass line of people who like, I got this great Batman story. Oh, you don't say. But even if you get a hold of wrangling in like a chance to write a Batman comic, try to get outside the same wheelhouse as everybody, but constantly making Bane or Joker or uh, uh, you know, well, to some extent, Ra's al Ghul, and like focus on other characters and try to make some interesting stories with them, like Poison Ivy, or if it was me, Calendar Man, because after the Arkham games, they really made Calendar Man like, if you put in the effort, he could be a serious, because he's a serial killer. He can be a serious like villain, and things like Mad Hatter. Mad Hatter rarely had any love. They finally like gave Scarecrow something in Fear State, but I didn't care for it. Oh, it seems like it was a lot going on, and it wasn't like he was the focus, even though he should have been. There was other little machinations involved with another regular Joe who's also bad, and it's like it was so much going on. It's like can't really, you know, like it's no focus. But yeah, Poison Ivy is an incredible character. Now, it was like a stint. It's like a few years ago where it felt like Harley Quinn, getting through to Ivy, and because Harley Quinn is pretty much like a hero, or in some cases anti-hero, and since she's with Poison Ivy, that would probably rub off on her, and I would think it'd be like a natural progression for Ivy to grow into an anti-hero as well. Uh, she's like, for most of her stories, she's pretty much like an eco-terrorist. But yeah, Thorns, written by Kody Keplinger, art by Sarah Keypin. I keep wanting to say Kingpin. Uh, and I dig the art in this because It reminds me. I'm not sure if it's the same artist, but it kind of reminds me of most of Miss Marvel Kamala Khan books with the art and the way it's designed. Um, but you get a retelling of Poison Ivy's origin story and why she became like like have the outlook that she has right now. Uh, of course, you see Ivy, uh, going to this park, and apparently she's been like protesting this deforestation and signing all these, getting all these petitions signed. None of it seemed to work. So she decided, okay, then one night she put in some chemicals, which, by the way, I'm glad in this they, you know, uh, because some people forget that she's a freaking botanist, she's a scientist, a different kind of doctor from what Harley Quinn, who's a doctor of the mind. And I'm glad in this you get to see, her excelling well in school with like science, more specifically botany. But she got into her father's lab. He's a scientist as well, and made this concoction that she, because she apologizes to the flowers and plants in the park late at night, and just decides to like, okay, this is I have no choice now, and just smash the vial, which ends up causing this toxic gas that infected two construction workers, and now they're hospitalized. This was reported on the news, and the father obviously found out, and like he's just like, I understand you really like that park, but you gotta be careful, because we gotta keep our family secrets a secret. And you can see like Ivy's, kind of, this is like a far cry from what we know Poison Ivy to be. A little bit more self-assured and domineering. Yeah, but here in her early years, she's a little more timid. And as the story goes along, you see her blossoming, if you will, into what we know her to be. I kind of wish this story was out before Batman and Robin, so Schumacher would have had like some frame of reference to lean on to like for Uma Thurman to like do some serious research to like portray Poison Ivy in a better light than what was given to us. Matter of fact, now I'm thinking about it, it's like since you're giving Michael Keaton another bite at the apple as Batman, maybe there's some other actors, just like with like Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. I think like because it wasn't because Uma Thurman is still like a big star, but she was like the talk of the town, like around that time, and like she was like the go-to female lead in a lot of stuff. So of course she was cast as Poison Ivy, which you don't think is like a bad choice, but it's just that there's certain the way she carried it out didn't sit well, and it's like, okay, not bad casting, but give her some better material to like and a better I won't say the better director, but like without studio interference, because that's the issue Joel Schumacher was having. But like give her like another bite of the apple and like really like show Poison Ivy in live action in a proper way that that show her like, yeah, this is Poison Ivy. She is a badass. Because for right now we just got the Harley Quinn show, but like I want a live action Poison Ivy done right. And so Ivy living in this mansion with her father. It looks like almost like a Addams Family type of house, almost like at least half the size of the Addams Family house. And she ends up going to this high school where I guess he's becomes friends with this golf chick who's apparently her adopted mother knows Pam's father through like professional means. And I was getting clearly harassed by this boy named Brent, this little shithead who apparently uh, Ivy chose to give him a chance and took her out for homecoming, but he got a little handsy. Wasn't taking the word no seriously, and so she just pretty much left. And now he spread rumors that they did it, uh, which is like a disgusting thing to do. But it's like, as you can see, to where like she has like except for maybe one guy, she's have like a series of men just treating her like just property and like shit. And it's like taking her any her choices from her, which is kind of like running parallel to what we have going on in real life with like Roe v. Wade. Not to get like political or anything like that, but it's like you hear her being like is reminiscent, not reminiscent, but it's also Me Too-ish as well, because like got these this kid. Then he, after a while, when thanks to her girlfriend, who turns out to be like a bit of like a love interest, who's pretty much became her North Star, which later on Harley Quinn kind of fit that mold. But she tried to steer Harley into like try to trust her and try to get her to trust her and like steer in the right direction. Like, hey, tell the principal like what's going on, but the principal ain't shit. He's like, oh, his family. It's just like as I went over in my Captain America comic book event, like United States of Captain America, and one of the people who took up the mantle of Captain America, this Filipino college girl who also was dealing with an affluent student who was abusing her friend, and decided to do something about it because his parents bought the paid for the library or some other crap. So he's this untouchable kind of thing, which is like disgusting. That kind of thing goes on. So this is kind of the same scenario here. There's a greenhouse near the school, which Ivy's mother helped make a donation to get that erected, and she spent most of the time like there tending to the garden, talking to it and everything like that. And her science teacher, Mr. Crowley, probably the only good, upstanding male figure in her life, kind of wish he, I'm not saying like not pay attention, but it's just like try to see like the red flags or something. But of course Ivy could have easily gone to him, but she just as the story went on, she just grows less trusting in people, because it's essentially not maybe like, well, I mean, her father might have you can consider that physically abusing her, but it's just like all other facets of abuse she's experienced, and like being looked down upon because she's a woman, and thinking people can like just own her and not give her a say or all this other stuff. And it's like, of course she and like her father drilled that in her head, like you can't trust anybody, and try to like, oh, lean in, oh, we're family, like, you gotta handle things in-house kind of situation. And of course, like Brent once again tried to like hit on Harley, uh, getting right in her personal space. But thankfully, the goth girl Alice, that's her name, which is ironic because you got like a Mad Hatter and he's obsessed with Alice's. It'll be kind of interesting to see like Alice come up again in like a Poison Ivy book, or Poison Ivy Harley Quinn collab book, and like you know uh you know Harley has to deal with like the return of Ivy's high school sweetheart kind of thing, or at least how she see like her friend turn out like you're like a super villain, and you get put in Arkham Asylum many times over the years. you know that kind of thing. It'll be interesting to have something like that because during like the Fear State, a year or so ago, they brought back so random, brought back Dr. Chase Meridian from Batman Forever, and it's like, wow, that is just random. I've all like certain, you know, underrated, like I wouldn't say underrated. I just nobody cares for Dr. Chase, but out of all like supporting characters in the Batman's like world, Dr. Chase. I'm not sure if that was Tom King who did it or somebody else, but if you're just bringing people back, somebody bring back Alice for Poison Ivy and see how that love triangle come about. And Brent trying to talk shit to Alice because she's pretty much butting in to save Poison Ivy, and he's like, "Oh, you just mad because nobody want to like hook up with you," and she like, "I'm gay, dumbass." So he eventually turns away, and you hear like these two ladies having a conversation, and she, Alice make a compliment about her lipstick, and you hear like Poison Ivy because he's an eco what was it, eco lover, whatever. She makes her own lipstick because she's the only one she can trust that is not coming from any kind of animal or being tested on animals or anything like that. Or and she like trusts where it comes from if she makes it herself. And there was also a comment in here about how like she's a vegetarian, and in the TV show a week ago, no longer than a week ago, in one of the episodes, Poison Ivy made a comment saying like I'm not a vegetarian, like because people think I'm a vegetarian because of the whole plant thing, but why would I eat plants? And it's like, yeah, that pretty much makes sense. Poison Ivy would probably be more of a carnivore rather than a vegetarian because she'd rather not eat plants. It'd be equivalent to like you eating people. And it's like you wouldn't do that. So yeah, I kind of like that, and that's the one thing like I saw that like I did not care for. Like, yeah, that wouldn't make any sense for Poison Ivy to eat a plant. So she goes back to science class, and like I said, I like to see like her like in her zone when it comes to like science, because of course she aced in her science class, obviously. And I love the look of her red hair. Of course, she got that like classic red hair. Her mother had red hair, so of course it stands out. The professor, like Mr. Crawley, is trying to make sure she like you got like a bright future ahead of yourself if you keep these grades up, and it's like you're doing wonders, and like, you can pretty much go into any field that you want. And clearly she's gonna be going into like botany. And later on, you realize that the father's been experimenting on Ivy. And turns out, because Ivy for the longest time been telling people for the past few months, her mother has been on like a research trip. So that's why people haven't been seeing her in a while. But she's been back months ago, although she, a few days later, contracted some kind of plant toxin of some unknown origin. I don't know why she never like bring it up. Or maybe she just didn't know which one it was. But she felt ill. The father's trying to keep her alive while working on. It's very Nora Freeze, Mr. Freeze kind of moment. Except, Ivy's mother wasn't frozen. But he's testing out all these little things on Ivy because like they come from the same blood. So you're trying to find a cure to get the mother to wake up, but it's just it'll be easier to find like the plant, but nobody knows which plant did it. But it's like I'm pretty sure as a scientist you can find like I'm pretty sure you might have done it, but like there should be a plethora of books of every known plant that's been documented. But maybe he, looked through them all and none of them fit the bill. Maybe it was like a new plant thing. But it just, I'm pretty sure there's got to be like other things to. But he never bothered to take the mom to a hospital so they can run proper tests. I guess, because Ivy like went over with the story with Alice about the mom when she was around. She's the only one that can make dad laugh, and it was like a happy family. But as soon as she felt ill, he just like just dead inside. He stopped like acknowledging, what he's doing to his own daughter, because he's so focused on bringing his reviving his wife. So he's very cold. That's where the whole Mr. Freeze thing comes into play. Like he's just like completely cold towards his own daughter. I mean, he's like talking about how like we're a family and blah blah blah, but it's like you're abusing your kid. You're experimenting on her like she's a guinea pig. Instead of taking your wife to a hospital, you just don't trust them to, as he put it, go as far as neat as he would want to in order to find a cure, which is unethical stuff. And like, Ivy is, just haunted by this like howling moan throughout this like, semi-empty house. But Alice comes to stay with him because the construction workers who fell ill thanks to Ivy's, little concoction that she threw into the park. The physician looking after them happened to be Alice's mom. So, while, she's, doing what she can to like find like a cure, Alice needed to have somebody to look after her, because she can't be home alone. So she decides, so she kind of puts her on, Ivy's father to like look after them, because since like, oh, our daughters are best friends, they go to the same school, like, you mind? And of course, not to raise suspicion, he just agrees. And it's like, but he tells Ivy, like, you keep an eye on her. Do not tell her anything while she's here, because I don't want to like tip, off her mother about what's going on here, because that'll be it for us. So that's where like Ivy and Alice started to get a little bit more acquainted, and telling Alice about her mom and everything like that. But of course, like one night, Alice knows Ivy, getting sick because all these experiments is changing her, body chemistry a little bit. And like, it's like her eyes getting greener. And this is like the next day in school when Brent just like taking it too far and getting handsy on Ivy. Like Alice, just make a suggestion, go to the principal, let him know. And of course, the principal don't do jack squat. Once it's like, it broke my heart to see that. And it's like, wow, it's like, and it's obviously probably set years ago, when that kind of stuff was like just very rampant. But you can see like why Ivy has not only have issues trusting people, men specifically, because for the bulk of the time it's like people would just let her down and took advantage of her in some shape or form. So she stopped viewing people as people, except for maybe like a select few. And she finds more camaraderie with plants because she's like she loves the environment, and like she feels like these pretty much the one thing that won't let me down, and I they'll care for me like I care as long as I care for them. And one experiment, that kind of went, she snaps at him. It's like, mom would have wanted this, and he just like is, it kind of triggering for me when like you're trying to tell your parents they crossing a line and like you're hurting them and kind of thing like that, and it just kind of like try to make it seem like it's your fault instead of hearing you out just because like, oh, they think, oh, you're just a teenager, you just haven't gone through emotions, or you don't know what you're talking about, blase blase blase, and you just like, I'm glad things for a lot of people are turning around when we, like people are more acknowledging of the child's feelings. Now, no, most people like think is, gets too far when it's like treating like their kid like you're their best friend, and it's like, no, that's a little far. There's a middle ground, and it's like I remember from Cinema Therapy, like the psychiatrist there, which check out Cinema Therapy is a great show. I love Cinema Therapy on YouTube, and like the therapist on the couch there points out that you don't have to be like your child's best friend. Nobody's saying that, but throughout the stages of your kid's life, you got to like meet them where they are when it comes to like respect. They get eventually over time they'll have their own autonomy, and it's like you keep demanding respect without trying to like give them a reason to respect you. And it's like you if you treat them like don't, like if they ask you a question, you don't give them that whole tired lines like because I said so, because like it's not saying like every parent's perfect and like everybody gets to that mode every once in a while, but it's just like if it's nothing like a rushing kind of situation, you have the time to tell them like why you're doing this, and speak to them on the level they're at depending on the age, especially when they start growing up into teenagers and they're trying to find themselves, and and like you gotta like stop treating them like they're not pets or robots, and they got feelings too that need to be respected, and it's like and that's what I'm seeing here was the father just like, I'm the father, you listen to me kind of crap, and it's like he's not focused on what he is doing to his own kid, and it's like parents are like not this extreme, but it's just like there's parents out there that's like even to like a lighter scale, say things like that, and it's like like of course you can be best friends with your kid, but when they're fully an adults, like well in like in their late 20s and get into their 30s, they're like full adults that got their own passions and what have you, and it's like by that point it's like, okay, depending on the situation, like yeah, you're like they're in that age where it's like, okay, they got like job, or they're driving, and they probably in a serious relationship by that point or what have you, so it's like you gotta stop treating them like children, because like some people, like some parents like having a hard time getting out that frame of mind that like, oh, this is my kid, so I'm gonna keep treating them like that despite that whatever age they're in. And it's like, it's maddening, honestly. It's maddening. So this prick drags his daughter to his comatose wife's bedside and say like, you look at this, kind of thing. Look at her. Do you want your mother to die, Pamela? And of course, like this kind of breaks Ivy's heart, kind of thing. And there's a moment with like Alice where she's trying to like talk with Ivy and let her know that, because the Ivy ended up learning like the very wrong things from her father, talking about like you can't trust people, but in effect, she ends up turning her back against people in general because of his abuse and what, like, seeing what the principal and this, shithead Trent has been doing her. Like, she, other than Alice, she doesn't, and Mr. Crowley, she doesn't have, like, outlets, but she is too focused on, like, what's going on with the mom and, like, the plants and stuff like that. So it's like, it's, it's kind of very, like, pushing her away from humanity altogether. Eventually, Alice finds the comatose mom and try to, convince her to not to say anything. But she ends up running away back to, like, the park where that violet that she ended up breaking made, like, the plants there bigger and stronger, which gives her an idea to try to use that on the plants in the greenhouse by the school. And this is when she confides with her girlfriend Alice. By this point, it's pretty much a girlfriend. And she shows Alice the vial, and this kind of shocks Alice. Like, that was you who threw that a vial that caused that toxin that hurt those people? It's why, like, like, I'm not with my mom right now. It's like, what's going on? Like, Ivy. And of course, Ivy's is too, focused on, like, the potential of making the plants stronger to be able to avoid, like, the deforestation, because, like, the park, this is why she's obsessed with the park, because that's where, like, her and her mom always hung out. And then as she's walking back into the school, Brent tried to get handsy with her again, but she just fed up at this point, and so she shoves him into his friends. And then obviously, crying vengeance. I am vengeance. But she eventually does in the most, like, garish and horrific way by just trashing that greenhouse and every plant there, which, because of the experiments the father was been putting on to Ivy, she can actually, because Ivy can hear the voices of plants, and she hears all these cries for help, and she arrived too late to see, like, like, graffiti word bitch on the front of the greenhouse, and everything inside just, just tore up. And so she decides, okay, enough's enough. So she makes her classic poison lipstick and lured Brent to the park. And, like, it gets kind of creepy because the plants are now just, like, slowly but surely, like, following to her will. And, as she's leaving at the house, and all the plants in the house blocking Alice from going after Pam. So she gets Brent to kiss her, which causes the poison, and he starts, to choke on the poison, and, like, vines pull him into the green, and it's, like, horrific. This kid is just, like, he's by, this could easily be a Black Label book, but by and large, this kid is dead. Which would be, I guess, Ivy's first kill. At least in this iteration. When she gets home and Alice trying to convince her to, like, to say, like, what she do, but they end up kissing, but Ivy forgets he still has the poison lipstick on, causes, like, Alice to suffocate, which Ivy had to rush to make a quick antidote in order to, cure her friend or girlfriend or whatever. But yeah, this is this leads into this big altercation and a blow up between Ivy and her father, who burst in and find Alice in the room with his wife, and Ivy just pretty much had it up to here, and she said like, "I'm calling the ambulance. I'm getting mom out of here, and you can't stop me," kind of thing. Uh, uh, and of course, like the classic like parent lines, like calling a kid selfish, and it's like, I'm selfish because maybe because you taught me not to trust people, and so the the vines in the room starts to swirl around the father, ultimately killing him, making that her second kill. And so Alice and Ivy buries, the father in like the backyard. Alice mentions like, "Hey, do you want to say a few words?" And it's like, "What is there to say? He, did horrific things to me, you know." So, uh, they spend one more. Well, they finally take them, get the ambulance to pick up the mom, and luckily, Alice's mom was like the doctor on call, and saying like, we stabilized your mother. We were still trying to figure out like the plant that might have poisoned her, and what kind of experiments the father was doing. So, for all intents and purposes, people assume Ivy's father just ran off. Uh, it's amazing there was no other investigation like digging up. Well, I wouldn't expect them to be like the first thing they do is dig up uh, the ground or anything like that. But now they got this little death secret between the two. Uh, but Ivy goes to say her goodbyes to her mom, who says one word, calls out Ivy, and like made like a clenching Ivy's hand, maybe giving like Ivy hope that like something might bring her out of it. But Ivy decides to like, I guess, go off to Gotham, start a new life. And this cab driver, well, she spends one night with Alice before she does, but she leaves in the middle of the night, and with tears in her eyes, Alice just says like, "Goodbye, Ivy." And probably the first, well, other than like Harley, this probably will be Ivy's first like legit like stable relationship, or at least stable if she would have allowed it. Uh, who's to say? Like, I mean, it's like, imagine they might have like had sex, but obviously it wasn't like graphic like that. Uh, but a cab driver, puts Ivy's things in the trunk, and he asks like, "Where you headed, sweetheart?" "Bus station." "And don't call me sweetheart." "Oh, my apologies. What's your name then?" "And call me Ivy," because that's the word that that's the name that the mother wanted to call her when she was a baby, but the father wouldn't allow it because it would make sense in his mind to call that be naming their child Ivy Isley. So she takes that as her moniker from this moment forward. And that's the end of Poison Ivy Thorns. It's pretty solid. Like, I enjoyed it. It's short, sweet, to the point, which I like in most of my comics. Like I said, this could easily have been, was obviously an Elseworld kind of thing if you think about it, but this could easily be like a Black Label book but if the writer so choose to it to be, but it wasn't as like the kills, for example, wasn't as graphic as you might think, but it can easily have gone that way. But yeah, I wanted like a good solid Poison Ivy book, and this is probably like, if you want like a good Poison Ivy book, this is like the one you should check out. It's not that long, but you get a good, clear idea of Poison Ivy's origin story. And of course, in the main continuity, I'm pretty sure it's slightly different, but this is not too bad either. But if you read Poison Ivy Thorns, leave a comment below. Let me know what you thought of it. But yeah, like, like, subscribe, all that stuff to show more support if you so inclined, because like you guys have been great so far. And the next, the next few comic book reviews is gonna be like, it's gonna be Iron Man centered, because I already cleared up a bunch of Captain America stuff last month. Now I really want to like start hammering home some Iron Man. So I'm gonna cover all three of the movies. I'll cover a couple of the comics, at least three comics I think, and going over Iron Man Armored Adventure season 1 and 2. So look forward to that in the coming weeks. Uh, ouch. And so yeah, it's gonna be like very Iron Man heavy. And I will see you guys in a little bit while I go over a review of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Golden Wind Arc. So see you in a little bit.